2x2 formation. Road change now, we go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action, it's go.
This is very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in, this has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill, they head towards the Aqua Minerale. Imola, of course. There's another one off through the gravel. As wide as possible as they drop downhill, but that's from the inside line. Yes,
oh, he did.
Through he goes.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to another Apex Online Racing stream here for round 1 of Season X. Can you believe it? 10 seasons here on Assetto Competizione, all ready for this main AOR Championship. And joining me in the comms box tonight, not for the first time, but for the first time in a while, great to have you back in the comms box. Tim, how you doing, my good friend?
Hello, yeah, very glad to be back. Finally finished moving house and getting all the internet set up, so back and ready to rock and roll. And yes, as you said, Season X, not just Season 10, but Season X, so it's extra cool and edgy, and it's going to be a really good one, and a bit of a different night for us. Obviously, we're normally the Tier 2 commentators, but here covering for Rage this week in the Tier 1 booth, so hopefully it all goes well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a very exciting opportunity for us, and you know, these guys, Tier 1, always putting on a fantastic show, and to sort of introduce a little bit of a build-up and bring everyone up to speed of how things are looking going into this season. Currently looking at Luke Whitehead, who was the #1 qualifier in the hot stints, and Luke obviously had extremely fast pace last season, but just didn't really have the best combination of races where he was able to really put it into action. And you know, this is a season that I'm sure that he'll be looking to kind of build upon what he learned from Season 9 and really turn things around in the best way possible. And his hot stint qualifier certainly was looking to do that, and he was closely followed up by the man who is currently fastest in this warm-up session on the Surfer, Zahir Essa, a name we haven't seen in AOR and Tier 1 for a while. He, I think, was runner-up in around Season 6, if I'm not mistaken, to Maciej Malinowski, and a very fast and well-known driver, and very well-known to be quick in the Porsche. So he's making a bit of a statement early on this practice session, but those are going to be some very quick guys to watch.
Yeah, so qualifying just about to begin, and everyone diving out of the pits and straight out. My goodness, look at that pack of cars. It's ridiculous. Everyone absolutely certain to get out first. I'm trying to see what number that is that's got actually out the pit.
I think it's
first.
a 31, if leaderboard is working correctly. Although saying that, I can't actually find a 31 car in my list. I've got the second car in that train of the number 22 of Hubert Szymanski in the Please No Nerf Honda, which for those of you who don't know, the Honda has become a much more competitive car this season as of late, with the most recent updates to the physics as well as the BOP. So we've got quite a decent chunk of Hondas in this grid, which is nice to see. It's a car that has definitely been heavily underused in previous seasons, so it's nice to see it getting a bit more love in Season X.
Yeah, say obviously that last big update, it was the challenge pack, I think, was when they really gave it a good tweak. So some new cars came along. Obviously they redid the Honda, still with the original name, but gave it a massive tweak. Essentially it is the Evo 2 now, and yeah, it is great to see a different car appearing on the grid. As the old BMW M6 immediately was felled by the M4, it's nice to see something a little bit different out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Evo 2s, one very big change that has happened to ACC as a game, as we see Greco it was the number 47. It was a little bit of a misread on my part of the numbers for the car, but yeah, leading this train is Greco Krzysztof Makowski in that Jardier community team Bentley. He was going a little bit wide on the exit there, setting up his lap. But yeah, speaking of Evo 2s, the Audi Evo 2 recently making its way into the game, and there's a few of them dotted around in this grid, and the Audi has been an interesting car. If you look back through the seasons, it's had its moments where it was extremely fast at certain circuits. At one point at Spa, it was almost a second clear of anything else, and then with the various updates that happened to the tyre model and things like that, it just gradually fell down the order and didn't really have the same level of competitiveness that it once did. And recent BOP updates really did not favour that car. It was quite underpowered, it was a bit heavy and a bit sluggish, and really couldn't hold its own against things like the Porsche and the M4 and cars that we've been so used to seeing at the pointy end of the field in recent times. But the Evo 2 is looking a lot more handy. It's got pretty good aero package, it's got decent downforce, and it's also got quite a hefty amount of grunt, which is something the Audi never typically had in the past. So, you know, around Misano, where we've got some long old straights, that the Audi Evo 2 could well be in quite a nice happy place to make its debut, and in the hands of the likes of, I think we've got Joe McCauley in the Audi, if I can find him. He is, as he goes bumping all over the exit curbs of turn 4 or 5, I think that was. Yes, he was looking very, very fast in practice, so a name that we've seen in Tier 1 previously, and it'd be interesting to see what he can get out of that car.
Yeah, having a little look as well, we've got Gerardis again. He's in one of the new Audis, the number 86 car, and also a little bit further down we have Bauer as well. That's a name I've definitely seen before. Car number 20, another one of the new Audis. It's a real nice mixture of names. I say there's quite a few names that I'm sure you recognise as well from Tier 2 that have moved up this season, and some of the dominant names that refuse to be taken out of Tier 1 with their relentless pace. I just want to quickly point out that the top, it's getting longer and longer, the top 15 are within a second of each other at the moment, and they have barely started lapping for qualification. So there's some people that have not even put in times yet, but yeah, the top 15 all within, well, they're within 0.9 of a second. So it's 15 cars all within less than a second of each other on times. And that's just absolutely insane. That is absolutely bonkers. A couple of people pushing a little bit wide, I have noticed. Obviously trying to get as much speed as possible. Say a 075 to beat at the moment. That's done by the car number. Oh, there you go. Totally wrong.
Oh,
it's now 132.7. I'm going to give up. It just keeps changing.
Oh, they're all flowing in. All the Porsches. All of a sudden, 4 Porsches head to the top of the timesheets. Would you believe it? And Trevor Wenham, a race winner from last season in Tier 1, I believe, going to the very top there on a 32.6. That is an absolutely rapid time. But to beat and go one further, Luke Whitehead, we said he was looking fast, looking competitive. But would you believe it? This feels like season 5 or 6 all over again, where we've got Porsches locking out the first few rows of the grid. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if people can come back and shake up that order a bit. But we're having quite a nice mix, and all of a sudden 5 Porsches all just chucking times at the 10-minute mark and absolutely dominate the first few spots.
What's crazy is when you look at things, obviously the top 6 are now Bentleys. Blackguard Saw in 6th place. And then you look at the next car, sorry, and yeah, it's a Bentley. Car number 41 in 7th place is a Bentley. So 2 polar opposite cars. The Porsches rounding out the top 6, you know, so that's the front 3 rows. But I mean, they're all going to have the same weaknesses in the same positions, aren't they? So people like, as I said, McCauley and now Orgodovkon. Sorry, I've just completely fluffed that one. Car number 41.
Ogorognikov.
That's the one, Ogorogonov. I do apologise, I am grossly dyslexic, so I know what I'm trying to say, and I'm reading it, but it just doesn't come out that way, so apologies in advance. Having a quick look now, I was saying how amazing it was that the top 15 were within 1 second. It's now the top 27.
Yeah,
this car 27th is exactly 1 second behind pole, which is unbelievable. 132.5 is currently our fastest lap, again by Luke Whitehead. Oh, and Caracas squeezing up. He's got himself into 5th place, where he was. Now he's stepped back down to 6th. But a couple of the other cars fighting back against the Porsches.
Yeah, we had a good flurry there of a couple of Bentleys. We had Jardier putting it into P5, then Caracas just nipped ahead of him, and then Dominic Gultz got in front of him as well. So yeah, we're seeing some of the Porsches being broken up a little bit, but they are looking very, very quick. But one thing to note about the Porsches around here is where they make up a lot of their time is in the opening sector. They are absolutely rapid in the opening sector. As in the meantime, someone tries to spoil the party. Joe McCauley, a 32.590, sees him get almost within half a tenth of Luke Whitehead's best effort so far. That's extremely competitive lap there from McCauley. But yeah, the Porsche is very, very fast in Sector 1. However, it does still suffer from its notorious straight line speed deficit. And Misano, there are a lot of long straights here, so these Porsches, whilst they may occupy a lot of these spots and they kind of rally around each other a little bit in the in the grid potentially when they first get going, the likes of McCauley and the Audi that we've mentioned has a decent amount of straight line speed. The Bentleys, the McLarens, they're all so racy on these straights, and that could really put something into questions. In the meantime, a Bentley, speaking of which, goes to the top of the timesheets as Valentine Barrier does a fantastic lap, a 32.465 to put himself onto provisional pole. Barrier, not a driver that we've typically seen at this much of the pointy end of the grid in Tier 1. He's been in Tier 1 for quite a few consecutive seasons now, but really does seem to have found a new level of pace in recent times, and that is an absolutely brilliant effort there from him. We'll have to see with just over or just under 6 minutes to go whether or not he will be able to maintain that top spot, but that is definitely a statement from the French driver.
Yeah, that is a massive, massive improvement, and in quite an old car in terms of ACC, and even in real life now in GT3, they are becoming less and less prevalent. I think actually Bentley have stopped as a factory supporting them anymore, so it's a case of sort of looking after yourself. We were saying about obviously the way the Porsche is a massive, has the issue of a lack of straight line speed, and although yes they are really quick on qualifying, that lack of speed in a straight line, especially here at Misano, is going to be a real issue, because if they've got someone that is faster in a straight line already side by side with them when it comes to a corner, they're in trouble straight away, and it's much, much easier to defend a corner than it is to defend a straight. And if, you know, something like the Bentley or the Audi is dominant in a straight line, you know, if they go left to make a move and the Porsche moves across, they can only move once to block. They can't weave back and forth, otherwise they will, you know, feel the wrath of the wrath of race control, and immediately they're overtaken. And once they're side by side going into a braking zone, then it just comes down to who is brave enough and who is willing to go on the brakes as late as possible. And it might not be the Porsches. The Porsches might not be able to do it. It might be a case that these other cars, although on a hot lap where you're not fighting for position, they are technically slower, they could be quicker in an actual race pace environment. And again, the two Bentleys inside the top 10. I'm trying to see who else we've got here, just to get an idea of how much of a step up that Tier 1 from Tier 2 is. Grantis Caracas, kind of a 19, that McLaren was Tier 2 winner last season. Very quick driver. Currently running in 12th place, outside the top 10. That is strange ground for him. He will not be used to that. So it's going to be interesting to see how his racecraft comes together today when he's having to battle in the mid-pack as opposed to being in the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. For a lot of these guys, it's new territory, and just coming back to that sort of discussion of the Porsches and against these other cars, there's one series of corners at this circuit which could be very, very difficult for these guys in the Porsche. Now, it's a little bit like 130R for the Mercedes. If you're ever watching a race around Suzuka, you can almost guarantee there's at least one Mercedes that will spin off at 130R. There's just something about that corner and the way that you set up that car. It's a very, very dangerous corner for the Mercedes, and around here in Misano, that sequence of 12 and 13, those really fast right-handers going into the sort of the very end segment of the lap, to get those corners right, you have to effectively lift and coast with the car. You have to kind of back off, and the Porsche is renowned for being so tricky to control under those sorts of conditions, and the back end such a tendency to get away from these drivers, and with the changing fuel loads and how that affects the balance of the Porsche during the race as well, it's just a lot of these little extra variables that these guys have to try to factor in to their driving, to their setup, how hard they push. And if you're in an intense battle, how much are you willing to risk in those moments? And talking about risk and the Porsches, Luke Whitehead has a few final things to say about pole position as he goes and does a 32.4 of his own and goes up into provisional pole, and immediately heading back out of the pits to get one final effort in, as we've got about 2 minutes left on the clock. So these guys will be doing some of their final laps now, but it's definitely going to be a tricky race. We're presuming the weather won't really factor into this too much. It's mostly likely to be dry. There is a chance of some changeable conditions and a very, very small chance of rain, but without commentator cursing things too much, there is a pretty reasonable chance that we're going to have dry conditions throughout qualifying and the race. So that's not an aspect that these guys are probably going to be worrying about too much, but maintaining drivability in their car consistently during the race is a huge, huge thing, and Misano is incredibly unforgiving in terms of track penalties because the nature of the corners, the runoffs, the curves, it's very easy to get greedy and try eating up as much of the tarmac as possible to extract all those thousandths that quite clearly in this qualifying session matter so dearly. But in the race, that can be the difference between you finishing in the top 10 and finishing 20 seconds behind 30th if you get one of those drive-through penalties. So it really is a big track for risk versus reward.
Yeah, and one of those places that you don't think about but actually is quite common, and I've seen it happen multiple times in GT4 and GT3. Now, you were saying about how unforgiving this circuit is. I believe it is turns 8, 9, that sort of that long hairpin right at the end of Sector 2, where there is no barrier between either side of the track. If you spin off and go across the grass, if you end up going too far across the grass and you end up closer to the other side of the track, the game thinks you're trying to cut the corner and will immediately penalise you. I can't remember what the penalty is, but I can't remember if it's that you actually get disqualified instantly or if it's what size the penalty is. But I'm pretty sure I've seen it before where drivers have just immediately been disqualified because essentially they're just trying to cut the corner off completely. So got to be a bit careful that you don't end up over-rotating as you turn in and end up in the grass and flying across the track. I mean, unless they change this in a sort of a more recent update. I remember seeing it definitely over the last couple of seasons. I've witnessed this happen, and it's pretty bonkers when you see it.
Yeah, it's not exactly something that's too characteristic of other circuits. And yeah, you're right, that is a unique problem with this circuit. I'm not sure if that has been addressed. So yeah, we'll have to see how that factors in. Hopefully we won't have too many incidents where that sort of thing ends up happening. But yeah, it is something that these guys have to keep an eye on. Just looking at Yonkers now, I think is doing his final effort and running to the line. Not going to be an improvement. A very, very strong lap from him to sit in provisional P5. Marco Yonkers, multiple-time winner in Tier 2, and has immediately made a very, very big impact in Tier 1. So a fantastic effort from him. Looking elsewhere, though, Luke Whitehead, he doesn't look like he's improving. Ogorognikov is heading towards the line. I think he might find a 10th. I can see him go up to top 5. 6th place it will be for the Bentley driver. So that'll be it from him. Whitehead did not improve, and I don't think anybody else is improved. I think we've got Sebastian Apostle. He will go up to P15, and by the looks of it, yeah, that is going to be it. So in the end, there wasn't actually many improvements to anybody's laps in those final moments, but he was number 1 in the hot stint qualifiers, and he will take the number 1 spot in the first qualifying session of the season. Luke Whitehead sees himself to the very front of the pack for this race, but it must be said, Valentine Barrett in that Bentley very, very close behind him, and the Bentley is well known to be an extremely strong car here at Misano, so maybe in the long run with that race pace, that extra straight line speed, Macaulay and that Audi sitting in P3 as well. We could be in for a very interesting first lap.
Yeah, and I've just had a quick look at what the timings, the gaps are here. The top 40 cars are within a second of each other. So there's 40 cars on track, all lapping within a second of each other. So this really is a race of attrition. The likelihood of you just outpacing someone here is milliscopic. It's tiny. So it really is a case of who can stay cleanest, who can keep going. And actually, yeah, rounding out the top 40 is Gobi, and she put her car on in, well, yeah, it's 40th place at car number 50, the little McLaren. So great effort there. And that's the top 40 within a second. That's insane. I can't lap any track within a second of consistency, let alone 40 cars doing it all together that way. So absolute insanity.
Yeah, that is ridiculous, but an absolute demonstration of the quality of talent that we're constantly seeing in Tier 1. And also, you know, Tier 2 as well. Maybe the net race pace and qualifying pace for drivers in Tier 2 isn't quite on the same level as Tier 1 as you'd expect, but the margins do tend to be fairly similar, and this is what's so brilliant about the whole tier process for the AOR League. You've always got somebody that is on the same pace and similar pace as you, so you're always guaranteed to be able to battle with somebody, and that's why we just have absolutely incredible amounts of action every single time that we go racing. But yeah, the man to top them all was Luke Whitehead in the end to get pole position. I'm not sure if he got any pole positions in Season 9. I'm not 100% certain in either direction, but certainly making a bold statement for the beginning of Season X. Lining up on the front row next to him, Valentine Barrier, a very strong showing from him, and I'm fairly confident that that is his personal best ever starting position in an AOR race. So brilliant stuff from him. Joe Macaulay, a name we haven't seen in a while within Tier 1, but putting himself into P3 and the very first Audi, and the first Audi for a while. Next one's all the way down in 17th, so very good stuff from him. Trevor Wenham driving the Porsche this season in the Race Anywhere SimSport outfit, starting in P4, so he'll be looking to see if he can make use of that Porsche acceleration at the very start of the race and getting himself through Sector 1 and maybe past a couple of the guys in front. Marco Yonkers, I have to say, incredibly impressive. To go from winning races in Tier 2 to getting a starting position that he probably would have been fairly used to. He wasn't the best qualifier in Tier 2, so, you know, top 5 in Tier 2 was a common occurrence for Marco. To do that in Tier 1 with this quality of the grid, absolutely extraordinary to see that turnover in pace in such a short period of time. So brilliant effort there from him to also be the lead McLaren, followed by Ognorodnikov in the Bentley in P6. Zahir Essa down in P7. He might be a little bit disappointed to be further away from Luke than he was in the hot stint qualifier, so see if he can bring up some pace during the race. Then obviously fan favourite Jardier in the Bentley. Haven't seen him in the Bentley for a while, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on with that car this season. Followed by Black Goldsaw, another well-known name within Tier 1 and part of the Race Anywhere SimSport team as well. And then Marcin Oliars, another Tier 2 driver who has worked his way into the top 10 of this Tier 1 grid and sporting the Honda, the first Honda in the field. So brilliant effort there from him. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with that car. Then we've got Angel in Astroza, number 96, Porsche in P11, Leon Burnt in P12, Matthias Kuhn in 13th, Wonko in P14 driving for Visceral Esports. I think there's been a partnership recently involving Volante Esports as well for that team. Sebastian Apostle in P15, Dominic Gultz, a very familiar name in recent parts of ACC on AOR. If you watched any of the BMW Racing Cup, you would have seen Dominic Gultz would have most likely been a contender for that championship if he'd participated from the very beginning. So be interested to see what he can do from P16 on the grid. Florian Bauer in P17, followed by Grantas Correcas. Might be a little bit disappointed with that result, and like I said before, an uncharacteristic position for him to be in, right in the middle of the pack, an extremely racy pack at that. So Be interesting to see how he gets on. Yuri Petchenko in P19 and Hugo Merles rounding out the top 20. Tim, do you want to take the rest of the field?
Yes, can do from there. Okay, so now in 21st place is the Please No Nerf Honda from Hubert Zimanski. Then we have Gert Fischer in the Butterfly Effect Esports 2, currently running in 22nd place. 23rd place is Samir Foch, in the Clown Fiesta Esports car. Jack Alexander in car number 1, and that is running in 24th place. 25th place is Cole Garosso. 26th is Darren King. No, it is not. For some reason I can't choose him. It's saying, yeah, it's King. 27th is Maskinowski. 28th is Parek. 29th is Dietrich. 30th is Van Meerveld. He was always a fan favourite in Tier 2, so great to see him up in Tier 1. Then we have in 31st place Navies. 32nd place is Appel. 33rd is Prendergast. Phillips in 34th position. Mamad in 35th. 36th is Chassette. 37th is Hacker. Then we have 38th Gerardis. Connor Wright in 39th position. Gobi in 40th position. 41st is Niles, and rounding out the grid, that's got quite a few accents on it. How do you think that is pronounced? I do apologise. Vulcan, first name, I definitely could do, but without causing offence, trying to work out how to pronounce that last name.
Yep, it's definitely an interesting one. I think we're about to get underway for the first round of Season X. All immediately a drive-through penalty for Hugo Merles down in P20. Luke Whitehead cutting across the apex of Van Dyne Barrier. It looks like it's been fairly clear. All bumping then in the background of turn 2. Got side-by-side between Trevor Wenham and that is Joe McCauley. Ogrogkov trying to get involved in this as well. The 56 car of I can't see who that is down in the background. Wenham's gone wide in that first opening sequence of corners, so he will drop a position. I think we might have a very, very busy field in the middle of the pack there. It's getting a lot bumpy on the exit of turn 6 as we've almost got 4 wide heading down towards turn 8 as well. I think everyone though has roughly managed to maintain pointing in the right direction in the opening sequence. Whitehead uncontested for the time being out front, as we've got side by side with Goldsaw and Yonkers, as Jardier trying to get involved in that as well. I think though, generally speaking, so far it's been a mostly clean lap. The 56 car, that was Harry Phillips that dropped down. Jardier trying to go around the outside of Black Goldsaw as they head through 12 and 13. That's a very, very brave move to try and make this early on in the race, and he will have to... Oh, it's contact on the entrance and he hits Yonkers! Disaster in the first lap of the series. Jardier got caught up in the braking zone with Black Goldsaw and took out Yonkers. Poor Yonkers, an innocent victim there. We've got Oliars now trying to put Jardier under pressure in the closing part of the laps. We see a break in that train, as then there's also some bunching going on further in the background, but disastrous opening lap there for Jardier and poor Yonkers.
Yeah, that was a real stinger. I mean, I think it's the fact that the two cars got together unsettled and they couldn't get as much grip as they want. Oh, I think the battle for third place is hotting up. Yes, they are. Side by side. The Audi 1, 2, 3 trying to go around the outside. It's going to be a real risk to hold on to them. It might not lose 2 positions, it might only lose the 1. Just manages to keep back the Porsche and is pushing really hard now. But look at that Bentley already starting to stretch away. Someone else that also had a really bad lap 1, Grantis Caracas, spun in sector 1. Don't think he took on any damage, but ended up on the grass and ended up in second to last place. So yeah, bit unfortunate on that one.
Yeah, we're just having a look at Naves and Jan-Marcel Dietrich going side by side through turn 8. Still going side by side into 9. Bit of a double apex for this right-hander. I think that's Connor Wright just behind them as well. He's gained quite a few positions in this opening lap, as then the sea of cars making his way down the back straight. Connor Wright now trying to go alongside Marcel Dietrich, see if he can make a move of his own. There's lots of cars going side by side. We've got Meerveld going alongside, I think that's the likes of Gultz and Prenter up ahead as well. Conor Wright, can he get this move done on the inside of Dietrich? Dietrich still trying to hold around the outside. So difficult to go side by side through there, especially on the heavy fuel, but I think they've just about done it. Conor Wright trying to squeeze him on the exit. Can he cut across the nose into the penultimate corner? Almost making contact going around. Dietrich, though, will get back past, and there's a Mercedes now up the inside as well, trying to snatch that one away from Conor Wright. Conor Wright trying to keep his foot planted as he goes over the sausage curves on the outside, but I think he might have to relinquish that position unless he can get back up the inside, down in towards turn 1, but the Mercedes does look like he's held onto that one for the time being. Very, very busy opening couple of laps so far. Oh, it's contact! Neves spins across the track and collects a Mercedes. I didn't see how that contact initially started, but multiple cars involved in that as well. And Conor Wright, one of the people to get damage from that. That was Neves. The Mercedes got a face full of that as well. I think McLaren has gone off again. Neves having an awful opening sector to this lap and has dropped down the field considerably there, trying to find who that Mercedes was that ended up getting involved in that, as well as they rather unfortunately got a face full of McLaren as they came through that sector. I think that might have been Appel, and it was Joris Appel for Team Ballas Esport, the number 29 car. You can see the front of that Mercedes has suffered a absolutely huge impact. So that is disastrous then for his race, but didn't see how that contact started, but certainly dramatic consequences by the time it finished.
Yeah, that was in turn 3, car number 7, just collecting the back of that McLaren that we saw get rotated. The tiniest of touches, I think it was super small, and actually, yeah, it was just a case of the McLaren just rotating round, could not get on the brakes enough, and everyone else just piling through, unsighted through that turn, and it ended up just collecting a lot of cars. It's just so easy to happen. You're just desperately trying to make it through. You're not looking for incidents. Oh, and that McLaren still floundering, obviously carrying a lot of damage. It did get hit quite a few times, but he is trying to limp his way back to the pits. But that is the longest drive back to the pits that you can possibly imagine. He's just made it now. Yeah, he'll be very
sorry to cut you off there. We've got Macaulay and Wenham going side by side. I saw the delta's getting pretty close and spicy on that back straight, and Macaulay trying to now go around the outside. Wenham going to send it up the inside into turn 10. Can he get that one stopped? He's going to run out very, very wide, and the straight line speed deficit of that Porsche may leave him quite vulnerable. We're going to go on board with Jardier as he looks to maybe trying to recover some positions as well. You can see he's gaining all the time on that Porsche. Wenham may have to relinquish it. Jardier may be trying to get 2 for 1. I think that's going to be a little bit ambitious, surely, as he slots in behind Macaulay for provisional P5 for the time being. So Wenham, I think, may have lost 2 positions on that lap, and you can see the Porsche, as soon as it ends up in a battle and gets locked into a fight with another car on that back straight, it is almost game over. It's so difficult to try to recover the position. Although you can see he's hounding the back of that Bentley already, it's just so difficult for him to try to make a move. So losing out and showing off the weaknesses of that Porsche, Trevor.
And what I found amazing there was the pace difference through that flying corner between Jardier's Bentley and the Porsche there. It was just unbelievably different pace. You could really see how the Porsche had to back off that flying corner, and it just meant the Bentley could just stay flat out and just gun it through the inside. Took a big chunk of inside curb. The Bentley could take curbs, especially here at Misano. It could just take them like they're not there. That's another place where the Porsche does struggle a little bit, is on aggressive curbs. And you can see under braking it's really dominant, but it's so hard to pass in the turns. And every time there's a corner here, there's just a nice big long straight afterwards where the Bentley can just stretch its legs and pull away again. So coming around to the same part of the circuit again, are we going to see possibly Jardier try and make a move on Macaulay? I don't think he's going to be close enough, and just with that Audi not as affected by the top end speed, I think it should be able to hold on to the position. It's going to be really who's bravest into the braking zones. Just noticing for a little while how far Barrier and Whitehead were getting away, but now third place in the Bentley is right on the back of them, 0.8. So the battle for first place essentially is nearly a 3-way battle. I think give it a couple of laps and those 3 will be absolutely battling it out. But while everyone else is squabbling down at McCulloch down in 4th, the gap's opened right up. nearly 3 seconds between these guys. And as we saw in qualifying, they are all within a second of each other. So this is purely down to battles. This isn't overall pace. This is just having to go defensive, going off your line, trying to hold on to positions. And it's amazing how much of a difference it can make.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you have to wonder, are we seeing the Bentleys starting to come into their own a bit in this, well, fairly early stage of the race? But yeah, Whitehead was able to make a pretty good getaway to start with, but Barrier has not let him get too far and has reeled in that gap a bit. And Ogrodnikov, who has set the fastest lap of the race so far, 0.2 of a second clear of anybody else, and he is looking very, very fast. And if you've seen Ogrodnikov in other series such as SimGrid and the like, you will know that he is a very passionate driver when it comes to fighting on track. So if he sees a gap, he will be going for that gap. So definitely sensing some action building up towards that, with him to get involved very, very soon, as once again Whitehead just about managing to maintain enough of the gap before going onto that back straight to hold Valentine back. But you just get the sense that over these last few laps that the Bentley does seem to be the quicker car, and we know how fast the Bentley is inherently around here. So you just have to think that maybe in these next 10 minutes or so, will Whitehead start to struggle a bit more and those Bentleys be more likely to pounce? But Whitehead could get lucky because Ogrodnikov seems to be catching to the back of Barrier faster than Barrier can lock onto Whitehead. So that might give him a little bit of breathing room over these next few laps, depending on how that battle ends up playing out. Just having a little bit of a look further down in the field, we've got Jan-Marcel Dietrich and Korekas going side by side through turn 1 and 2. Korekas all over the inside curb, trying to now hold it around the outside for turn 3. I don't think that was quite going to work. And we've got Tasvinsva Hacker in the Mercedes trying to capitalise on that, seeing if he can make a move. I don't think he'll be able to make that one just yet, whether or not he can get a good run onto this back straight, onto the exit of turn 6. As Korekas gets all over the curbs, very, very tricky to stay within limits around here. Dangerous for these guys. Try and make sure they don't get a drive-through. Hacker actually goes extremely wide on the entry into turn 8 there, and again on the exit, so very much pushing the limits as much as he feels he can get away with, but definitely needs to be careful. We'll have a look back up at the front though, because my goodness, this battle for the lead has closed up indeed, and Whitehead, you can see, is just not able to get away from these guys. As in the meantime, it's the number 23 car of Mahmoud, and I think Alu Gobi also was involved in that. I saw yellow flags appearing for those two cars at the, I think that was turn 10, so it looks like there's been something going on near the back of the pack there, unfortunately for them. But this battle for the lead is most definitely hotting up.
I just had a quick notice as well. Remember, Korekas spun on lap 1. He was rotated in the first sector of lap 1. So that is massive gains he's made already. You know, he was down in, I think it was 42nd place. So to already make up that kind of pace is pretty immense, it has to be said. Just going back through the replays and seeing if I can see what happened with Gobi's car. Haven't been able to find anything as of yet, but we will keep hunting. I'm sure I can find something eventually.
I think it would have been down in turn 10, around the sort of 50-minute mark, something like that. On the timings. We're just on board with Valentine Barrow, who might actually have his first opportunity to try to go around the outside of Luke Whitehead, trying to see if he can get a nose up there, but Whitehead doing everything he needs to do to hold on to that position. And again, Barrier unable. Oh, it's almost contact there on the apex of turn 14. You can see the speed difference between the cars, but Barrier just not able to quite do anything just yet. And Ogrodnikov rubbing his hands together, hoping maybe for some contact. It was almost there between the two fighting at the very front of the field, but Whitehead just not able to get away from these two Bentleys. A little bit of mistake though from Valentine into turn 1. That might actually give a bit of a run potentially to Ogrodkov, excuse me, and Barry trying to go defensive on the inside now towards turn 4. Does go a little bit deep, does Eagle think about a cutback, unable to do so, but you can see just how quickly Whitehead now has managed to get a few car lengths between himself and that leading Bentley. Now with that slipstream being very, very impactful, will Valentine have enough pace, particularly under the pressure that he is coming under at the moment, to close back up to Whitehead? Whitehead might have done just enough to break away and hold that top spot for the time being.
Yeah, that is the key as well. It's getting yourself some clear air, pulling away from the rest of the pack. As we said, not having to defend. And so to a certain extent, the two Bentleys would do themselves a favour by not battling too much. Work together, push forward, then they can catch Whitehead, and the pair of them could exploit the same weakness at the same time. The pair of them could almost get past at once if they work smart like this. But are they going to do that? Who knows? It's the red mist of racing descends. All you want to do is pass the next car. All you want to do is keep taking that battle to the car in front of you, trying to squeeze past. But that is exactly what Whitehead needs. So these two need to just take a little breather and have a little think about it. Having a quick look at the top 10, originally dominated by Porsches, look how different it looks now. It's predominantly, well, what was it? There's 3 Bentleys, 3 Porsches, Audi, there's a Honda in there for good measure as well, and BMW as well. Oh, Apostle in our leading BMW, to be fair, 10th place. Sort of kept himself out of trouble and seems to be doing nicely.
Yeah, has absolutely shaken up the order since qualifying, and this is exactly what we want to see and what we would expect to see. You know, all of these cars have different strengths and weaknesses, and absolutely, you know, it's critical for how each of these guys drives their own race, thinking about the long game, how patient. It's amazing how patient you need to be. Even in a race that's only an hour long, it might seem like a very short race, and in comparison to some of the endurance races that we see going on, it does seem like an awfully short amount of time. However, one other thing that's going to be not very long away is Eagle trying to make a move potentially for P2. He was right on the gearbox of Valentine Barrett. Oh, he gets a huge wiggle going through that sequence of 12 and 13. I've said that it's a very, very tricky part of the circuit for the Porsches, but the Bentley as well, it can be tricky too. I remember a few seasons back myself actually in a Bentley and ending up sideways at about 140 miles an hour and somehow not managing to collect anyone in that moment. But it's, yes, depending on how you have that Bentley set up, it can be mighty down that back straight, but an absolute handful as it gets to that series of corners, particularly as the tyres start to give way, and the rear tyres do have a habit of being eaten away a bit with the Bentley. It's a car that does have pretty good agility, but you really have to throw it around, and that does sometimes compromise you in long-running pace. So Eagle unable to make a move for the time being, but looking at those times between the top 3, all very, very close, within half a tenth of each other on that last lap. That is just absolutely insane margins between these guys. In the meantime, actually, Jardier has managed to get past the likes of Macaulay, and Trevor Wenham has reeled in the Audi ahead of him, and he's bringing along his teammate Black Goldsaw. I think the only other driver at the moment to be in the 33s. Black Goldsaw currently doing the same pace as the leaders, and he is looking to try to get involved in this 3-way fight for P4 if he can. He's had a little bit of a quiet race so far. I think got a little bit jostled around in those opening series of laps, but does seem to have started to find a bit of a rhythm in that Porsche, a car that we haven't seen Black Goldsaw take on before, but does clearly have strong pace in it. So it'll be interesting to see if he can work his way back into this fight. As just looking a little bit further down, talking about the top 10, Marcin Oliars defending as best as he can from the Audi of Bauer behind the Honda. Very, very good straight line speed. So, oh, Bauer gets all over the grass on the exit there. Wasn't able to capitalise on being as close as he was in that final sector as he would have liked. Now he's got a Apostle behind him to worry about. But the Hondas maybe not the best in the likes of Sector 1 and some of these high-speed corners, but the pure grunt of the Hondas is just unfathomably quick at times, and that really does help them at maintaining position as well as capitalising on other opportunities as well.
Oliars actually was gaining on him in Sector 3 then. I caught on board with him just towards the end of Sector 3 down that'll be turn 11 at the sort of at the far end of long end of the back straight, and he was gaining on him quite significantly. It was only under braking that Oliars managed to regain any ground, and then obviously we saw that little mistake from Bauer when he went a bit wide, but he was definitely gaining, and Oliars definitely looks like a threat, under threat, sorry, from Bauer, as long as he can get it done before Apostle closes up on the back of him. Because these four all starting to stack up. Szymanski as well, getting pretty close, but staying on board with him now. The Audi does seem to reel this Honda in after a little while. Just now it looks like he's outpacing him just a little bit, which is incredible because the Honda is so fast in a straight line. It is an absolute drag racer. So to see those two battling out so equally on track is amazing. I mean, the BMW doing its best to hang on to the back of these two, but when it comes to a straight line, these two cars are absolutely, unbelievably quick. And that first place battle, again, heated up. Whitehead has not been able to shake the two Bentleys at all through Sector 1 now. Barely 2 cars length between them. And again, that's what I was saying. I think they're working together a little bit, not squabbling too much. So Barrier got past, that's all he wanted to do, and maybe Ogorodnikov is thinking to himself, it's better to just stay on the back of Barrier, just follow him through. They could gain the time, they could both take Whitehead, and then they can squabble as much as they like. But it has to be a case of working smart together, and I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a little bit of tactic play. Loads of drive-through penalties coming through. I've just seen car number 96 and Naves have both got drive-through penalties, and that's all for track limits. And it is so easy to break track limits here at Misano. There's no real speed consequence for breaking track limits either. So it can be very tempting to just absolutely go for it. Some people choosing to go for an earlier pit. I've noticed quite a decent chunk of people have come in with only 20 minutes of the race complete. They're obviously going to go for a something heavier second half and going to try and nurse the tyres through.
Yes, it's a very early. It's a bit of an early one I think, to be diving into the pits just so soon, because it's very high cornering loads on the tyres around here. As again, Igor senses maybe an opportunity down towards turn 1, was thinking about the outside. He forced Valentine to defend the inside line going into turn 1, but unable to make a pass. Also, I do apologise for a couple of minutes ago what may have been an almighty bang on the stream. That's I haven't had it in a while, but the sort of firework gunshot-like audio glitch that sometimes occurs on ACC, where all of the sound just kind of collapses and then re-establishes itself. I just had that go off in my ears, so that was rather unpleasant from my point of view, and I don't imagine it made for fantastic viewing either, so I'm very sorry if that was rather deafening on the stream, but seemingly everything is back up and running okay now. But yeah, that battle at the front between those top 3 guys, it just, the Bentleys, they managed to get close, but they never seemed to quite get close enough. And as soon as Valentine goes for a move or just some sort of different line to try to put Luke under pressure, Igor is immediately putting him under pressure. That drops the 2 Bentleys back. Luke gets a chance to breathe and then is able to get away until the next time that they catch him. So there's very much back and forth. Oh, as I see a yellow flag for the 58 car, that is Maxime Chassé. Oh, with multiple cars off. There's a Honda as well around there. I can't see who that is just yet, but Chassé repeatedly putting his car into the barrier just there, which is possibly not the most ideal way of recovering the car, but unfortunate contact for him. And I'm trying to work out who the Honda was. Was that Leon Burnt? I think it might have been. I'm not sure, but the colours of the car look right in the background actually of Leon. We've got Malik Mamad, who is desperately trying to defend from Alu Gobi, I believe that is. It is. She has done a fantastic job so far to get herself up from P40 up to P25. Obviously, a decent amount of the grid have done pit stops so far, so I have to see where all that comes out in relation. Speaking of somebody who's done a pit stop, Valentine Barrier has done his, so he is going for quite the undercut, and we saw in Season 9 the likes of George Boothby doing these huge undercut strategies, and they often worked phenomenally, and they worked so well that he could quite often gain not just one but several positions. Now admittedly he would struggle later on with tyre wear in the latter stages of the race, but you have to wonder, with the pace that this Bentley in Valentine's hands seems to have had, there's a strong chance that after these pit stops play out that he could get ahead of Luke. And the question now is, does Luke try to react immediately? And he does. Straight into the pits, Igor into the pits, Jardier into the pits. Jardier actually caught up seemingly quite a bit there as well in the last part of that stint. So those three have all closed up, and that will be very interesting to see how that plays out, because the tyre wear around here is extremely severe. The high cornering loads, the heavy braking zones, and the low speed traction that's asked of these rear tyres often at times is very, very demanding on these cars. So the undercut here, I can imagine being fairly powerful, so I have to keep an eye on Valentine in just a moment, see whereabouts he comes around the circuit as more drivers going into the pits. We've got Kevin Niles in the 444 Mercedes, so let's go to Valentine now. Where is he? He is down in turn 14 at the moment, so still a little bit of a way to go, and Jardier is in... I might have mistaken actually which cars came into the pits there, because Jardier is still out, so that might have been his teammate that came into the pits behind our other leaders. So we'll look and see where they are at the moment. We've got Whitehead, who has just come out behind a Bentley, but where is Valentine? It's going to be very close between these guys trying to get a good view, but Luke Whitehead has managed to maintain his lead. Igor has lost out a bit in the background there. There's a Bentley around them that must be a lap down, I believe, that has possibly caused a little bit of disruption amongst these guys' pit stops. But Valentine was not able to make that undercut strategy work, so Luke reacting immediately to that early pit stop was seemingly the right thing to do to try to cover off that strategy from the Bentley driver. But Igor and all of that has dropped back quite a bit.
Yeah, that Bentley just in front of them is car 47, position of 39, Makowski. So he is going to be getting caught pretty quickly. Oh, and a stop and go 30 penalty appearing. There we go. Car number 47 moves out the way of our two battling cars. Going back to the BMW and the Honda that were crashing earlier on. So the car 58 tried to go up the inside, and there just wasn't enough room and rotated both cars.
Sorry about Porsches. We've got one that's just we've got Vulcan that I just found in the wall as well. Try and see what happened to him. The replay didn't quite go back far enough, so unfortunately I've just got what the end result of Vulcan's race was there. But yeah, number 67 car, just found him in the wall. But yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Tim. Yeah, go ahead. What happened between that Honda?
It was the car number 58 tried to go up the inside of the Honda and ended up just catching him out, caught the back end of it, but over-rotated himself as well, and he ended up on the grass on the inside of the turn, which is why we then saw him trying to recover. What car number was that? Sorry, that Vulcan?
67.
67. I will go back and I will see what we can find.
You just found him stranded in the barrier on the last lap. And speaking of barriers, the man in P2 at the moment, he's got that lap down Bentley between himself and Igor, and this is realistically the first time in a long while, other than the very start of the race, where Valentine hasn't got the immediate pressure of Igor behind him. And you know, whether or not that allows him to maybe sort of be a little bit more committed in some of these moves, just hopping on board with him now. You see the closing speed of the tail end of this straight is absolutely mighty, gets a huge kick of oversteer through 12 and 13 as the pair of them hold on to it wonderfully. That car behind of Krzysztof Makowski is still very much sitting between himself, between Valentine and Igor flashing the lights, not too happy about it, as then Igor gets all over the exit curve. Krzysztof will eventually get out of the way, and that will unleash Igor to start charging onto these top two again and resume their battle, but Valentine just not quite able to get close enough to make that slipstream and top speed advantage that he has make it work enough to make a move onto Luke Whitehead. But again, we saw that in the opening stint, Luke did seem to have the upper hand, really that Porsche being able to make use of its tyres, as he even looks to gain a bit of extra slipstream from the back marker that they are going past. But in the latter stages of this stint, that does seem to be where the Bentley is very strong, and with more than half of this race left to go, and realistically then, kind of a potentially additional tyre wear that could start to factor in onto these cars and these guys' strategy, the Bentleys may end up being even stronger at the end of this race than they were at the end of that first stint. So interesting things to come.
Yeah, just having a quick look at Jardier's last lap. Obviously deciding to stay out. It looks like he's got himself in some reasonably clean air. He is still only doing 34.2s. Which obviously is quick, but you look at Whitehead, who last lap was a 33.3, and also then you look at Barrier as well, 33.4s.
On a 32.9 from Igor.
That is
absolutely monstrous lap time.
Yeah, so I don't know if staying out that little bit longer is going to work in Jardier's favour. It might have been the mistake. I mean, he's got loads of clear air, but he doesn't seem to be able to lap as quickly. I mean, maybe consistently he may be able to be quicker, just due to the fact that the other guys are going to be dealing with traffic. But he is one of the only 4 cars in the top 20 that haven't pitted yet. I think, well, no, everyone else is pitted at this point. So only 3 cars left to pit. Caracas. Oh, there we go. And Jardier into the pits now. So this is going to be the one to look for. Where is he going to come out behind? Car number 41, isn't it? That's who we kind of need to see if he's gained a position on car number 41. And I don't know. Maybe this has worked.
I think another note, another note to I think Caracas maybe, and Caracas will be the last one to pit. So everyone making their pit stops now. Just another thing to note: amongst all of the pit stops, Joe McCauley lost out not just to Trevor Wyndham.
Possible with pole position here. Oh, sorry, for the 4th position. Oh. Sorry, going around the outside. They're both really squirrely, and immediately got up 41, trying to take advantage of the both of them.
I think he's going to get him, and he has.
He has.
Igor has capitalised on it, so as soon as Valentine attacked, that's P2 gone.
Where is Jardier? Jardier is on the roll out of the pits, but I think here come the leaders now. No, he hasn't gained a position. He is still under pit control as the rest of the field is coming past him. He's still rolling slowly. So yeah, he was obviously hoping to gain some positions. Caracas just dived into the pits. But that has not worked in his favour. He's only just managed to get his foot down now. He's coming out sandwiched by a couple of Porsches.
He's ahead of Black Goldsaw and McCauley though, so I think actually that strategy hasn't worked out too badly for Jardier. That's roughly around where he was battling before, I think, and with some considerably fresher tyres as Black Goldsaw gets all over the exit curb of turn 6 there. So we'll have to see if Jardier in that Bentley can make a bit of a comeback later on in this stint. Possibly had to repair a little bit of damage in the pits there as well after that incident with Yonkers at the very beginning. Always looking back up to the front though. Valentine Barrier is not giving up on that P2 position. He's sent out the inside of Ogrodkov, and we've now got the 2 Bentleys having a drag race down the back straight, but Ogrodkov in that Bentley seems to have a bit of a lower downforce setup and is stronger down the back straight, and means that Valentine cannot quite make the move stick. But all the while that allows Whitehead to try getting away, because right now you'd have to say over these last few laps Igor has seemingly been the fastest driver on the circuit. So if Valentine can maybe just settle behind Igor for just a few laps, I seriously think that he will drag the pair of them back towards Luke, because I'm not sure with the straight line speed, the fact that Igor's Bentley was able to out-drag Valentine's Bentley as well as he did against the Porsche, you'd have to think that if Igor is able to get onto the gearbox of Whitehead, that would be a done deal down the back straight. So if Valentine is patient, still a long way to go in this race, he could see a potential fight for P2 come back his way.
Yeah, and like you said, he was actually the attacking car, so he was up the inside. He'd had to go for a less optimal line onto that back straight, so to then still have more pace towards the end of the straight clearly shows there is a difference in setup there. Has to be a difference in setup. I can't think of anything else that would give them such a difference in pace. Because essentially they are identical cars apart from setup. Maybe one of them's running slightly more fuel, maybe car number 41 going for a slightly less fuel than car number 72. Again though, risky if you're trying to run. And look at the speed difference here. Absolutely astounding. Not close enough to make a move this lap. But I think if Orgodoganov can stay on the back of the Porsche of Whitehead, he could definitely make an attack within this lap. It has to be done, I think. 26 minutes of the race left to go. This is the one to watch. He's just got to hope that Barrier doesn't catch up with him too quickly, or the Barrier getting very jumpy over the curbs as he entered the pit straight then.
Yeah,
again,
and on that last lap, Igor 33.2, almost quarter of a second faster than any of these other top guys. Although it must be said, actually, Trevor Wenham down in P4 did a 33.2 as well. So he's looking to try to close up towards those guys. He's got quite a bit of distance to make up. But yeah, Igor absolutely mighty down that back straight, and you really do feel like it's potentially just a matter of time before Luke loses that position.
Yeah, we've found over the previous seasons that the Bentley takes a little bit longer to turn the tyres on after the pit stops. So I wonder if now the Bentleys are really starting to switch on. They've done a few more laps. They've just got the tyres properly up to temperature. I don't know what it is about the Bentley, but it definitely seems to take 2 to 3 more laps than its counterpart cars to get its tyres fully at working temperature.
Yeah, without a doubt. We're just looking at the rear wing of Luke and seeing that Bentley closing. Which way does he decide to go? Luke has to defend the inside. Bentley all the way around the outside through 12 and 13. Can't make it stick though. Valentine, does he think about trying to capitalise on that battling? Goes towards the outside of Igor, but unable to do anything about it. And Luke Whitehead will survive an attack once more. And even though there is so clearly a straight line speed advantage in that Bentley, the Porsche gets such good acceleration and traction out of turn 10 that by the time that they're alongside each other, he's on the wrong side of Luke, and he just hasn't quite got the car where he needs it to be to really challenge him into that final sector. And you know, unless he's effectively in front by the time they get into turn 14 at the hairpin, any drag race coming out of the hairpin is always going to be won by the Porsche. It's almost an inevitability. The acceleration of that car is one of its biggest strengths. So Igor very fast at the moment, but Luke is most definitely making him work for it. As in the meantime, we've got Black Goldsaw and Joe McCauley in Sector 1 going side by side. I think McCauley has found some additional pace later on in his stint. Remember, these two swapped around during the pit stops. I think Black Goldsaw did an undercut, but McCauley trying to go towards the inside using the Audi grunt to see if he can get a move done. Not going to be able to make it stick just yet, but maybe he will manage to make the sort of move that Eagle is unable to make at the moment. They will be coming onto that back straight in just a second.
He's well within striking distance, isn't he? On this back straight, again, this is where the Audi against the Honda early on, we saw it really quick. I don't think the Porsche has got the legs to defend itself from the Audi. Just don't think it can do it. I might be right, it seems reasonably... Oh no, here we go, look, here's the Audi winding it up. Going for it, does look to the inside. Really good move, can he do it under braking? Oh no, the Porsche just closing the door on him, getting it done just in time. But if he can maintain that kind of distance, Black Goldsaw is under serious serious threat.
Yeah, that was brilliant driving from the pair of them, because those are two cars that on the ragged edge through 12 and 13 are not easy to go side by side there. And the one thing to note from that is the way that Macaulay positioned his car. That is what Eagle needs to do. He needs to... I mean, Luke is clearly a very smart driver, so he knows that he needs to defend that inside line. But Eagle, if he can, he needs to try to get to the inside, because with the straight line speed advantage that he has in the Bentley, if he was to do what Joe just did, I think he would have enough of his car alongside through that series of corners to then be down the inside towards the hairpin, and that would possibly allow him to get the position for the race lead. So we'll see if he takes any of that advice on board in just a moment. He's once again reeled in Luke over the last lap. The only driver, the only other driver from Jardier to do a 32. So Jardier on that later pit stop is on very strong pace at the moment. Eagle, though, can he find a way past? Not this time round. A little bit too far back. Runs very wide, though, on the entry to turn 14. Needs to be careful of drive-through penalties. These guys have been pushing extremely hard, and the margins are so small. So there's still a third of this race to go, more than a third of this race to go, and they do have to be oh so careful not to throw it all away by getting a drive-through either now or later on. So it may seem like you have to back off every now and again at the moment, as Luke gets a huge kick of oversteer through turn 2. The rear tyres on the Porsche may be starting to give up now, as this is the closest in Sector 1 that Igor has been in a long time, and he's brought Valentine with him as they head through this sequence of 5 and 6. You can see the traction and speed that Luke is able to get out of the Porsche through there. The Porsche loves that sector. He can effectively almost take that second part of the chicane flat, whilst the Bentley just scrabbles for traction. And that's why the Bentley can't make use of the straight line speed down that back section. It's just it's not close enough, and the straight's not long enough to really see that swap in transition. But now coming down towards turn 10, see what the difference is out of the corner. You can see that the Porsche really starts to outdrag the Bentley, but then as soon as they start to hit about 120, it starts to swing back the other way, and the Bentley will reel him in. Eagle closing every second. Luke will have to defend the inside once more. Going to try to hold that inside line as they head down towards turn 14. And has Eagle got enough? He thinks about a move to the inside and forces Luke to go very late on the defence going into the hairpin. But once again, Luke Whitehead doing fantastic defence. Inspiration from George Russell perhaps at Barcelona this weekend gone. And will hold on to P1. In the meantime, though, Jardier, a 15-second penalty for him. That will be for the incident with Goldsaw and Yonkers at the very beginning. So we might see some more penalties starting to come through now. And whilst he has been on a brilliant chance to close up to the likes of Trevor Wenham over these last few laps, that will surely cost him dearly in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that was the moves we're seeing now. They are, I would say that even though he is very much on the attack, I'm so sorry, I just cannot get my brain around the name. Car 41. Car 41 is still so aggressively on the attack, but he definitely seems to be slightly calmer with what he's doing. They don't seem to be as ragged. He's not getting so squirrely on the brakes when he's trying to make the moves. He's just putting the same pressure on lap after lap, just applying it to Luke. I think he's hoping for a mistake at this point. I think he's hoping that he can just, get a little bit of a mistake from Luke. That's all he needs, and he can get his car up the inside, or he can just get his car side by side going into one of the turns. That's all he needs, and this is a really good run. Is he not quite able to? Again, it just seems when it comes to braking then, the Bentley just has to get the brakes a little bit earlier.
He thought about it, but wasn't able to quite make that one stick. But yep, again, they'll end up 1, 2, and 3 the way they were before. But my goodness, you can feel the tension building just a little bit as each lap goes. There is a sense of calmness and restraint, but with each lap, you can sense the frustration and the tension building amongst these three. And with Valentine starting to get involved in this as well, it could get very busy.
Yeah, I just don't know if that Porsche can hold off the battle for that long. I just realised also that 15-second penalty, because it's in the latter half of the race as well, you know, you've got to drive it through into the pits and stop, or take that 15-second penalty to the end of the race, which, because of how close everyone is, that is going to be a huge positional loss for Jardier in car number 39. That is, well, it's at least 15 positions, if not more, he is going to lose. Just simply because of the fact that people are so close together. Yeah, I think that's almost pretty much race over. Col Grosso as well in 20th position, picked up a drive-through penalty, presumably that's going to be for track limit abuse. Who've got here car number 85, 15-second penalty, and Mamad with a 15-second penalty as well. So a bit of a chance for some people near the back of the grid to gain a few free places. Yeah, that's a real shame for these guys picking up penalties in the latter half. Speaking of drivers who I expected to see further up, car 888 Fock, who was part of the eSports team, McLaren Fiesta eSports team, that were our endurance champions. They were crowned on Saturday late evening. Again, he was in the car with Jardier and I think it was Malinowski. Those three doing a really, really good effort. But yet, all the way down into 19th place. Expected to see him further up the grid. So not doing as well as he would have hoped. I've just seen in the chat, someone is asking what position is Naves in.
I think he may have retired, unfortunately. Naves got caught up in a multi-car pile-up. Yeah, Naves has actually left the session. Yes, unfortunately Naves got caught up in a multi-car pile-up early on in the race. In the meantime, we've got Jardier trying to get past Trevor Wenham, and I think Trevor has led him through. He knows that realistically he will get this position back with the 15-second penalty that Jardier has. A nice exchange of light flashing there, friendly exchange at that between those two. But yeah, Jardier clearly the one with stronger pace at the moment. Trevor doesn't want to lose any time battling with him. In actual fact, he could benefit a little bit from the toe of that mighty Bentley down the back straight as well, so that works nicely for him. Checking in on the battle at the front again though, Igor once again, he was a moment ago under quite a bit of pressure from Valentine. He's got a couple of car lengths to him now and finds himself once again very, very close to the back of that GTWR RAG Academy car of Luke Whitehead, almost actually looking to maybe put him under pressure towards turn one. This is a strong sector for the Porsche, but again, 33.2 for Igor. The pace difference in the latter stage of the stint is very, very evident, and whilst we've been talking, there's been a couple of moments where Igor has been very, very squirrely in a couple of corners, but regardless of that, he is absolutely on the pace at the moment. Not going to be able to put a challenge together down towards turn 8. Luke Whitehead again using the pace of the Porsche in that opening sector to get a gap. But it's all about turn 10, and we've seen some different lines through turn 10. It's a very open and wide corner, a very flowing braking zone. Valentine continuously seems to go very, very wide. You can see, takes a very wide entry, cuts back towards the apex, trying to get better drive. Not sure how well that is working for him. He's in the slipstream of the Bentley ahead, but unable to really make too much progress there. But I think Igor once again is going to have to wait another lap. Actually, Luke going more defensive than I anticipated. I didn't think he would feel the need to on this lap. He did anyway, didn't really lose him too much time, but it's little moments like that where if you defend unnecessarily and the driver behind you isn't attacking, they can gain enough time through your compromised line to then be in a position to attack in half a lap's time. So Luke's got to be careful. It's very easy, particularly with this difference in straight line speed and everything about the Bentley that is in his rear view mirrors at the moment. Very, very real prospect that he could lose the win in the final stages of this race, but he's got to be careful to not over defend and to keep his head in these closing laps of the race, because it would be moments like that that could give Igor an opportunity somewhere else on the lap.
Again, what you were saying about defending, it's very, very difficult because you can't leave the door open if the car has an advantage over you. but you just don't want to go too defensive if you don't need to. If you can stay hot lapping for as long as possible, that is your best bet. And for Luke, that is exactly what he needs to do. He cannot afford to go defensive, I don't think. I think as soon as he starts going defensive and the Bentley is even closer, and this is really close coming onto the back straight now. But to be fair, barrier as well, going to be right in the toe of KUNOS 41. They could almost go either side of this Porsche. They could almost try and split it. And he's going to try and go around the outside again. Gets it up around the outside. It's a good run. Under brakes going to be side by side. No, not quite. Makes a little mistake under brakes. Has to go defensive himself. Has to defend from barrier ever so slightly then. There's a BMW back marker, or is it a Bentley back marker? Oh no, wait, that's not a back marker anymore, is it? Oh no, yes it is. Yes it is. For a moment I thought it was Jardier coming up on the back of them, but no, there's a Bentley back marker that's been stuck with them for absolutely ages, just following these guys around, and it's stuck with their pace absolutely fantastically.
Yeah, that's McCoskey, part of the Jardier community team. Has clearly got very good, strong pace in that Bentley, but by the looks of it, got involved in some sort of incident early on in the race and has just not been in a position since then to actually put it into action. But yeah, very much is on the same pace as these guys, but that was the best opportunity that Eagle had in a long, long while. But again, Luke just doing everything he needs to do. He defends that inside line, the Eagle doesn't get to it soon enough, and he has to go around the outside, and it's just almost impossible to do. He's almost relying at this point the instability in that Porsche through 12 and 13, he's almost relying on the tyre degradation and the pressure to have accumulated to a point where Luke is unable to keep the car almost pointing in a straight line through that series of corners to see if he can make that one work. But again, in the slipstream once more, we've seen it time and time again as gets to the furthest part of the straight. And before the King... Oh, does Eagle sense going down the inside? He thought about it. Luke had to sort of do quite a late defensive maneuver in the middle of that sequence. You can see he's almost just exploring the track now. Where can he push? What can he do differently? Because he's been trying the same setup over and over again for about the last 20 minutes. And, you know, whilst he may have been content with being patient early on and seeing if Luke makes a mistake or something like that, there is limited time available as he then fakes a move towards the inside. Luke did take the bait just a little bit, and once again through this opening sector, Eagle is able to put Luke under a big amount of pressure. You'd have to imagine that once again the pace in that Porsche through this chicane is extremely strong, and it just doesn't give an opportunity to the Bentley behind to make a move in this part of the circuit. But it's amazing how much of a gap he will close into the next series of corners. But this battle is far from done. We've got some sort of traffic up ahead of, I think that's the likes of Connor Wright. And who is that battling along with him? That is Appel, who was involved in quite a big incident earlier on. These two should benefit from a couple of penalties from cars ahead of them.
Ooh,
so
they've changed
that'll
the
work for them. So they have.
Barrier's got past. Barrier went past. That was on the exit of the turn and quite a significant move. So maybe not Barrier's kind of been thinking,
Eagle trying to come the inside. That's going to be a difficult one.
Just coming through that sector there, that flying, that sort of that second like kink at the end of the straight, I have noticed every single time Bentley number 41 goes through there, it is sideways over the curbs. It's just having a little bit of a drift, and I wonder if that is really starting to affect the tyres, as he absolutely nails the sausage curb on the exit of the final turn then, and lost a lot of ground. I very much doubt Bentley is going to actually go for an attack. It will probably just stick behind him and think it's better to stay with these guys, but it significantly caught up. So from battling for first place to now struggling to hang on to third place. So is this Barrier's chance? Can Barrier do something a little bit different? It's a fresh car to be attacking the back of the Porsche. This could be the thing we need. As you were saying, needed to try something new. He just started to put his nose in different places, just testing Luke, seeing where there might be any kind of weakness, and he didn't. He realised he will fall for a dummy up the inside. So you know,
Oh, it was a big send from Eagle to back into
it.
turn 10. He made the mistake on the previous lap of going too deep into that corner, and this time he's trying to use it to make a move. Valentine will have enough of an exit speed advantage to cut back across towards the inside, which is the defensive move that Luke has been making every single lap for the last 25 minutes or so, and he'll force Eagle to go once again to the outside. Ognarokov trying to see if he can make something work down into 14, as then Greco in the background almost takes out the Bentley ahead, getting caught up. Unfortunate for him to be stuck behind these two battling, but in just the space of a couple of laps, look at how far Whitehead has got away from these guys, and that could be the deciding factor in this race. Will that mistake from Eagle down into turn 10 be the one that not just costs him potentially the race win and maybe even P2, but just allow Whitehead at the very end to run away with the biggest advantage that he's had all race? Because these guys are continuing to battle. Barry is now trying to hold on to the P2 spot that he's been without for a while, and Whitehead is now able to exercise the pace that he's had in that Porsche. He's been driving exceptionally well. It's just the straight line speed deficit that he's had that's put him in a difficult position at times. And now, with just under 7 minutes to go, he's got several car lengths of the Bentleys behind, and they just might start battling amongst themselves.
And he's put a back marker between himself and second and third position. He's managed to put a back marker in there as well, so that is a huge bonus, a bit of a shield. It means there's part of the circuit that is not an available option for the Bentleys now. As a quick look at the last lap times, the Bentleys, since they've been squabbling, both in the low 34s, and Luke Whitehead in the sort of the mid 133s, so it doesn't seem like a huge difference, but over the space of a couple of laps, there's a massive advantage, and you can already see that Luke has really opened it up. And the Bentleys are still, they haven't even got past the back marker yet. There's that Mercedes in there, and that Mercedes is not going slow. It's not a floundering back marker. That is a fully competitive racer. So he won't defend his position, but he is simply a car that is on the track and actually is letting off the throttle now to let the pair of them through. So really nicely done by him.
I'll tell you what, they're immediately back on the pace, though. Valentine 0.4 of a second faster than Luke. So these Bentleys are clearly the stronger car. So the fact that Whitehead has been able to defend so often this race, despite the pace advantage, Valentine goes very deep in sector 1. Again, that's a mistake that may end up compromising his chance to win. He managed to break away from Eagle for a moment there, and that's possibly going to compromise him because he's got about just over a second between himself and Whitehead, and there's only going to be about 4 laps remaining of this race. But Luke has done an exceptional job to maintain that top spot. In the meantime, just looking a bit further down, whilst that top battle kind of re-establishes itself, we've got a fantastic train for P16, 17, 18 and 19. We've got a 4-way fight between these guys. We've got Essa, who has had a troublesome race, not really having the sort of pace that we would have expected from him based on the hot stints and where he qualified. So a difficult day for him. He's followed by Wonko, Alexander and Samir Fok, who are all trying to see if they can make any last minute progress. I have to see how they get on the backstroke. We haven't really seen what the McLaren can do on this part of the circuit. There's not really too many McLarens at the pointy end of the grid, and there's been such an intense fight, almost slightly unusually intense fight during the whole of this race around Misano, that we haven't seen a great deal of other cars. That Porsche ahead, though, actually had pretty decent straight line speed, so maybe the likes of Whitehead have got a very high downforce setup relative to some of the other Porsches, and maybe have compromised their setup just a little bit more in order to make them a bit more competitive throughout the entire sort of circuit overall, rather than being as much of a sitting duck as some of the Porsches have been on the straight. So interesting to see how some of these other fights have been developing, as Alexander trying to go around the outside of Wonko ahead. That allows Samir Fok to try getting involved in this as well. See the Ferrari struggling for traction through the exit of turn 3. Alexander thinks about a move towards the inside. Fok almost on the gearbox of the Porsche ahead. but won't be able to do anything just yet. And how does the Ferrari fare through the sector? Caracas is on the back of these train of cars as well, so I wonder if he can do anything in the dying stages. Fock unable to make anything happen just yet. Ferrari typically a strong car down the back straight, so be interesting to see how he gets on. Just quickly checking up ahead. Barrier still maintaining the gap to Ognarokov, but unable seemingly to close in on Whitehead. Whitehead last lap 33.6, Barrier 33.7. So for the first time in a while, Whitehead actually opening up the margin, which is not what we would have been expecting. As Caracas, Fock and Alexander getting very, very busy in the closing stages of the race. Caracas trying to go around the outside of 13, did not make it work. Samir will hold on to that one for now. Alexander manages to make a breakaway himself, and S's day goes from bad to worse as he gets a drive-through penalty with only a couple of laps left to go. So a very, very difficult day in the office for him.
Yeah, it really was putting up a great battle for a long time, wasn't he? Holding on to a 16th place. Obviously pushing that hard has caused issues. Oh, moving to turn 1, nearly by Caracas there on Fock, but wasn't quite able to make a move. These two squabbling on Saturday as well. Now they had plenty of battles on track at Laguna Seca. And again, goes up the inside.
Samir left in room.
He did leave him room. I think also Caracas was fully on the brakes and trying to bail out of it as well. I think he realised that he wasn't quite going to be able to get the turn in, and so he was just hard on the brakes and sacrificed a lot of speed as well. But the two of them being very, very courteous with each other there. See, even when attacking, these guys are still fully aware of what is going on with their cars, and it's going to be a case of, can Caracas gain another position? I mean, he's inside the top 20. Obviously, early in the race, he dropped all the way down into the 40s. He is presumably going to gain another position when Essa has to pit. Looking now, I don't think he's going to gain another position over Jardier. Jardier has managed to, the whole grid has opened up a little bit since he got his 15-second penalty, so he's got a little bit of a chance. Just noticed Luke over a second ahead now. Car number 70 picking up a drive through as well.
Wonko in the background of the battle that we've been looking at. So yeah, that's a disappointing way for him to end his day. Did also get the call for the last lap for the leader, and against all the odds, seemingly Whitehead, he's still got a decent advantage over those two Bentleys behind him, and if he can just keep it all together, he's had to sustain such a huge amount of pressure from Valentine, from Igor behind him, the entire race distance. And over these last sort of 10 minutes or so, just that one mistake from Igor just allowed Luke to break away, and he did not take a second moment to think about it. He has absolutely controlled the pace all race, coming down into the hairpin. He keeps it nice and neat and tidy through there. Valentine looks like he will be able to stay ahead of Igor as well. These three have put on an absolutely fantastic show for the season opener, but Luke Whitehead, after such a topsy-turvy season last time out, for Season X will take the win here at Misano at the opening round of the season. A brilliant, brilliant drive from him to bring that one home. Celebration for the two Bentleys behind us. Valentine gets by far his best result in AOR as well to finish P2. Brilliant stuff from him. Igor tried incredibly hard to take the win, and in the end would have to relinquish that and drop to P3. Jardier will finish in P4. I think, though, once penalties are finished being applied, that is going to drop him much further down the order in the top 10. But what an absolutely fantastic show out the front today.
I think he should still stay just within the top 10, looking at the times. He should still be within the top 10, I believe, if not maybe just 10th. But yeah, amazing effort by everyone this evening. It's been some great battles throughout the entire grid as well. We had some really good little ones going on a bit further back. Yonkers having some real good little battles earlier on. Who else was well, there was one of the Hondas I was keeping an eye on. I think it was Szymanski and Petrochenko and possibly Apostle as well. Those guys having some great little battles. Oliyars. So all across the grid, there's been some absolutely great battles, some good recovery drives as well. We had Caracas obviously with a great recovery drive up to 19th place. So not a great finish overall, but could have been a lot worse after that spin on lap 1.
Yonkers as well, P13. Remember, he got wiped out by Jardier in the early phase of the race. So Yonkers as well. That was a huge comeback drive from him to make that one, to make that race actually quite a reasonable result in the end, all things considered. So yeah, there's been a lot of top drives in today's races. A little bit of bumping at the very end with Whitehead and Barrier celebrations, but I mean, I think you've got to give driver of the day to Luke Whitehead. Whilst there has been absolutely brilliant racing up and down the field, that Luke, just against so much pressure, the pace that the Bentleys had seemingly was stronger. The tyre wear degradation he was suffering from was seemingly worse against those Bentleys, and the top speed difference, especially against Eagle's Bentley, to keep that position in the Porsche lap after lap, with that car being notoriously difficult to drive. An absolutely tremendous way to finish the race, and I think we're very lucky to actually have him already sitting in the interview box. We'll bring him in just a moment, but what an absolutely fantastic race there from him. Would you agree, driver day for Luke?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a really good defensive drive for him. Whenever he didn't need to defend, he didn't. He just went for it and put in some decent lap times and rebuilt the gaps when he could. And then when he did need to defend, he was very smart with it. Didn't over defend, just put his car in the right place, but did not lose too much speed. Just want to quickly just go through the top 10 now that the penalties have all been applied. Obviously, Whitehead, Barrier, and Orgonogonov in our top 3. Then Wenham in 4th, Black Goldsaw in 5th, McCauley in 6th, Petroshenko in 7th, and Jardier down into 8th position, so still inside the top 10. There's still a good points finished. Zemansky 9th and Apostle 10th after all the penalties have been applied. Bit further down the grid, a whole bunch of guys all penalised with different types of penalties, but not too much movement on the actual end overall grid finish. So yeah, let's grab Luke in.
Luke, can you hear us, buddy?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, John. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. One absolutely astonishing performance from you today. And, well, first of all, congratulations on what was an exceptional pole lap and then a brilliant conversion to make that a win. How are you feeling after that race?
Stressed. I mean, to start off, I mean, I wasn't happy with my quali lap. I lost 2 and a bit tenths in the final sector, so there was a 32.2 in there, which, would have been a lot nicer to have pole with. But I think I knew the race would be difficult. I just didn't know how it would be that difficult. The Bentley is exceptionally quick around here, and it's easily a couple of tenths above the rest. So to hold Valentine and obviously Igor off, who are both extremely quick drivers in their own rights and both know the Bentley really well, yeah, it was really tough. I think, if anything, having 2 of them made it a little bit easier on me. Obviously, they tripped over themselves a couple of times, and especially with, I think, about 5-ish laps to go, they tripped over themselves big time and gave me a 2-second buffer, which just gifted it to me, really. I think, I was able to relax a little bit, which meant I could drive a little bit faster, and that meant they just couldn't catch me. So, yeah, I'm exceptionally happy with that one, for sure.
Yeah, understandably so. It was a brilliant performance, and you're absolutely right that almost the fact that they were both there, although visually it maybe looked like you were under more pressure having to defend from so many Bentleys swarming around you, that it meant that sort of in the early phases of the race, Valentine couldn't quite attack in the way that he wanted to, and similarly, Igor ended up actually then compromising himself later on in the race when he went for some of those moves. So Yeah, and just sort of give us a little bit of an in-car perspective of particularly kind of that sequence of 12 and 13 in the Porsche. On some of the onboards, it looked pretty dicey trying to keep that car through there. It's obviously not one that responds too well to lifting off the throttle, which kind of how you almost dance that car through there. So, side-by-side action through there. What was that like when you had the Bentleys right with you?
Yeah, I mean, it looked a bit sketchy on boards, but for me, I knew what the car was going to do. I mean, I knew that if I drove the rest of the lap correct, I'd only have to defend into that corner, and obviously the hairpin as well. So all I had to do was kind of just commit to the inside and then just hold them out against the outside of the track, and then they just couldn't do anything then. Obviously, Igor tried going around the outside and then compromised himself, obviously, and I think Valer tried the same thing twice. I think Igor even tried to dummy me at one point, and then there was no room on the inside at all. So I was a little bit nervous because obviously you can't control what the other car's going to do. I myself can do as much as I can to stay on my line and obviously try and dictate what the other car does. But again, the other car is always going to be a bit of a wild card. So just trying to control that and mitigate the risk of being attacked was all I could really do. So yeah, I'm just glad that it was all clean. I've got to say thank you to Valer and Igor as well. Those guys, alongside me, we all put in an effort to make it clean and fair, and it was. There was no contact from my side and onto me. There was no contact. So, it's rare to have one of those battles that's so close for such a long time. It was for pretty much the whole race. So to have no contact, no incidents, and all clean, it was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah,
it's
very well
crazy to
said.
think how different of a race that could have been if there hadn't been that lap 1 incident where Jardier caught the back of who was it that got caught?
I think he tagged Black Goldsaw and then collected Yonkers on the back of that, so it was a bit of a double attack.
I say because the Bentley number 41 was down in 6th place, so he gained quite a few positions over the space of that period. So it could have been such a different battle for you, and it just, as it turns out, worked perfectly in your favour. I suppose although there being 2 cars behind you attacking is hard, at least it was 2 of the same car, realistically weak and strong in the same places. And we were just saying a moment ago how you just defended just the right amount. You just put the car in the right place when you needed to, and the rest of the time you concentrated on pushing forwards. Very easy to get yourself caught in that spiral of defence, and then everyone stacks up on you. But you did a really amazing effort of keeping that Porsche as a really dominant car the entire way round.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I was just concentrating on trying to drive my lap. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I knew the Bentley was really weak in Sector 1, so I knew that I could get just a little bit of a gap before Sector 2, but unfortunately, they were catching 3-4 tenths a lap every single time through the middle of the lap, so, and consequently, onto the straight, which obviously, the Porsche and the Bentley have complete opposite strengths in that the Porsche in this BOP around Misano is extremely nimble. The Bentley is relatively nimble, but is an absolute rocket ship in the straights. So I had to kind of play to my strengths a little bit and obviously play to their weaknesses. And yeah, as you said, the Jardier incident at the start, I didn't really see what happened, but I mean, it must have helped a little bit. But at the same time, I think even if Igor wasn't there, Jards would have been there anyway. Obviously, the Bentleys, again, as they were shown, they were 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They didn't start there, so their pace was really strong, and I think it would have been, I'd like to think it would have been the same outcome no matter what happened, but I mean, yeah, as I say, to be the strongest Porsche by a relatively decent margin, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, on to the next one. I don't even know what track it is.
I think we're heading to Barcelona for the next one. So yeah, obviously, kind of last season didn't maybe go in always the way that you would have liked, and starting off this season in much stronger form. Going into Barcelona, how are you feeling about that circuit? Maybe one that lends itself to the Porsche a bit more, do you think?
It's really difficult to say. I mean, as you said, we've started off on the best foot possible, which is the best way you can start a championship. Obviously, pole, race win, and leading every lap in terms of pit strategy. Barcelona is a track that I've never ever been that good at. I've always seemed to struggle there a little bit, but the good thing is I've got a decent setup base for Barcelona, I've got Bukida who can coach me because she's extremely quick there. So I'll definitely use any coaching that I can get around there. But yeah, I mean, as I say, the Bentley's also really strong. The Audi will be extremely strong. So will the McLaren and the Ferrari. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cars that are very similar around there. So it's impossible for me to call. But hopefully it goes the same as it did today.
Yeah, well, I'm certain that you'll give it your all once again there around Barcelona in a week's time. But yeah, an absolutely fantastic drive there from you today, and once again, congratulations on the pole and win today. It was a fantastic show for us to watch, and yeah, just taking the result and then moving forward into round 2. So enjoy the one.
Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Hope you enjoyed the race.
Oh, we did. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
Thanks
it
a
was
lot,
an
Luke.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah, same from my side. Same from my side.
Cheers, Luke. Thanks a lot. Well, by the looks of it, we're unfortunately not going to have any other drivers coming in for interview, but we did at least get the race winner, which we don't always get, sadly. So hopefully we'll have a few more interviews with winners from the races during this season. But yeah, at least we had Luke in there today, and just it was an absolutely astonishing effort from him all race long to sustain that pressure in a car that was clearly suffering in certain weaknesses, and to consistently lap after lap do precisely what he needed to do. There were times where I thought it was going to slip away from him, but he proved me wrong in the end and held it all the way to the end. So a fantastic drive there from him. As I say, heading to Barcelona for the next race in a week's time, where it's looking like it could be pretty interesting conditions for Spain. We've got only a 34% chance of being dry, 21% chance of being wet, and 45% chance of changing conditions. So that could be another interesting factor to play into that one, and will provide some, as always, very exciting action to watch next week. And of course, we will both be back here again tomorrow night for Misano once more, but for Tier 2. So, any final words on today's race, Tim, before we close down for the night?
I mean, it's been an absolute masterclass of racing. I think everyone that has been viewing this evening will definitely say that Tier 1 are beyond aliens. They are, I don't know, godlike entities that have just been an absolute pleasure to watch. It's been a pleasure to be covering the Tier 1 guys. What else can we say, Luke, apart from just John, apart from just amazing race throughout the entire evening. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's certainly a fitting way to start off Season X. And yeah, like I say, we will both be here again tomorrow night at 7:30 British Standard Time for the Tier 2 guys to send it around Misano. And don't think that the action will be any less. We were proven time and time again last season that Tier 2 could put on just as much of a show as Tier 1, so do join us for that. If you're also interested in joining the AOR community, head over to the apexonline.racing website, where you can look to register and sign up for the various championships that AOR hosts, and also do consider following AOR on Twitter at apexonracing. So we will be back again tomorrow night. Tier 1 will be back again same time next week on Monday, presumably with Rage and Jamie Ellis to host that one. But it's been an absolute pleasure from myself and Tim this evening to cover the season opener. It was a fantastic race. We certainly enjoyed it, and I hope all of you did in the chat as well. We will see you again tomorrow night for some more action at Misano. But for today, it's goodbye.